Okay, Beseder. So we're up to Siman Lamed Gimel Halacha Beis, Sif Beis. So we mentioned previously that the tefillin has, if you remember, it has 12 tefillas, 12 stitches at the bottom, 3 on each side. So there are 4 sides, and therefore it has 12 stitches. So now we're going to discuss in this Sif what happens if the stitching gets undone. It's snapped. You got a picture of it here in the picture book. Yeah, the mashal. Can you see that the stitching just becomes undone? Yeah, it's just snapped. So says the Mechaber. Im nifsaku tefiras hatfilin. In other words, the stitching just suddenly undoes. Im nifsaku tefiras hatfilin. Laharambam, according to the Rambam, im hayu shtei hatfiras zu besad zu. If the 2 stitchings are next to each other, tahainu, you've got 1 and 1 next to each other like that, then or you've got 3 which are done, like one snaps over there and then but they're not connected and they're not next to each other, then that passes the tefillin. When they're old, if they're new, the Moshev Habotim means the Torah. The Mishnah was going to explain the Torah, which means the base, this part, right? So long as this is intact, then you're okay. Ve'elohim Chadoshim. What is considered Chadoshim? Kol she'oichzin miksas ha'or shenikra tifrei v'toilim b'atfilin v'chazak ve'ena nifsak. Right. So you hold on to it and it doesn't snap. So he's got in the picture. And if you turn to page 236, picture number 2. Basically, can you see, he's holding onto the corner and it doesn't come away. Right, so we're talking really very schwach tefillin. So you hold on to the corner like this, yeah, and you hold on and it doesn't just sort of just pull away. Okay, so that's ve'ein nifsak. V'im roi litlis boy elahu nifsak hari elu yishonos. But if it does pulls away, then they're considered yishonos. V'yesh omrim, and the Ramah says, like we've had previously, the other way around. The b'chadoshim psulim, if they're chadoshim, that's possible, because that shows that they're new and they're no good. It must be an inferior quality. Of yeshonim kasherim, v'tov lochush l'shtei hasfaras came nearly, and one should be choshish for both sfaras. Says the Mishnah Berurah, laharambam. Avosha hapoiskim pligi alei. Others argue with the Rambam, or mekilim, and they argue and they are mekil b'chol gavne b'shtei tefiras. Whenever it's 2 tefiras, i.e., 2 stitchings come as undone, they say that's okay. And you've got 3 stitches which come undone, they're machmir. Doesn't make a difference if they're next to each other, not next to each other. Because if you're being misaken it when in a place where there's a hefsek, it doesn't help. But it's a gnai that in 3 separate places your stitching has come undone and you fix it up. That's a gnai for the tefillin. Bein chadosh and bein yishenim, whether they're old or new. And you got to therefore restitch the whole thing. Commission is by Betur Beis Yosef le'el b'sim b'soif simen lamed beis ein sham. Zu sheloi connected. So afilu kol echad b'tzad echad. Even if they're on different sides, like we said, there are 4 sides, 3 stitches on each side. Even if they're on different sides. Moshev Habotim, says the Mishnah Berurah in Yudalad, Hainu hatitayra, the base, like we said. V'gam b'zeh das haramok kamei b'hagol le'el. V'gam habotim tzrichim lios chayomim. The butts in themselves have got to be good. And it's it's on the top as well. Yeah, you got the stitching at the top as well. Lochush. So the Ramah says you got to be choshish for both svaras, i.e. chadoshes yishonos, either way around. If there's no choice, you can't find any other tefillin. And you can't fix and restitch these tefillin. You can be soimech on the mekilin when your tefiras, when the stitching has snapped. Bein b'chadoshes, bein b'yeshonos, whether they're old or new. Bein b'shtei tefiras, bein b'sholosh, whether it's 2 stitches, 3 stitches. Ach b'sholosh yizoy shlei varach aleim. If 3 of the stitches have come undone, then don't make a bracha v'ayim b'halacha. Okay, Sif Gimel. Retzuos. Okay, the Retzuos, the straps of the tefillin. It's got to come from leather of an animal which is kosher, behema chaya on oif, which are tahor. And when they process the leather, it's got to be done lishma. Retzuos bein me'ar bein miklaf kasheres. Whether the retzuos, whether it comes from the proper leather, the hide of the animal, or the klaf, or the parchment, i.e. they're very thin, that's going to be kosher. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah up till there. Tes zayin hatahirim. It's got to be, which has got to be tahor bilvad. And therefore, the Noda B'Yehuda, if you look in note number 8, the Noda B'Yehuda says, not just the black ink, but even the Retzuos, with the colouring, which is mashchir the Retzuos, not just the Retzuos themselves, but even the ink has got to come from kosher animals. If you want to sort of put in the ink some material which is going to make it shiny or whatever, that doesn't have to be. In other words, the leather for sure has got to come from a kosher animal for the Retzuos. But even the black ink which you're going to put over it to blacken it up, that's also min hamutar b'ficha. But if you're going to add something, some ingredient to make it shine and look nicer, that, according to Noda B'Yehuda, says not. Others are machmir, one should. So either way, the Retzuos, yes, the ink, yes, and the stuff which is going to enhance the appearance, machlikas. Okay, good. Let's carry on. Yud Zayin, Sifkot and Yud Zayin. V'tzorech kol ha'tzorech le'kuvuhu afilu b'di'evet. The requirement that it comes from a kosher animal is afilu b'di'evet. Lishmai, and you've got to be ma'abed the Retzuah, the leather lishmai. V'afilu l'Rambam to make a batim. Even according to the Rambam, who he said previously, it does not require that the leather for the batim needs to be processed lishma, just the klaf, according to the Rambam. He is agreeable that the Retzuos has got to be ma'abed lishma. You've got to process the leather for the Retzuos lishma. Moide hocha. And for the reasons, check out the levush and the Mogan Avram. So we can cheat, and we can go to footnote number 10, where he tells us this svaras. Halavush bier in footnote number 10. Since the of the Retzuos need ibud, mishum shetzorich shu Retzuos rakos l'kshira. The Retzuos have got to be a little bit soft because they've got to be wound around your arm, v'le kricha, etc. Therefore, the ibud has got to be the tzorech tefillin. The tzorech ibud lishma k'may b'tefillin atzmon. Just like the tefillin have got to be done lishma, so to the Retzuos. Masha'enkein bar habatim. Masha'enkein the for the batim, according to the Rambam. Shebeloy ibud haru chozok u'ma'ale yosef. Because without the ibud, it doesn't need to be processed. It doesn't need to be soft. It just needs to be strong and sturdy. Shuv ein ibud of choshev tzorech tefillin. Therefore, the ibud isn't considered the tzorech of the tefillin. That is the levush, and the Mogan Avram, he says, just like you got to blacken the Retzuos lishma, so to the ibud is also going to be lishma. Okay, continues the Mishnah Berurah. When you blacken it, it also needs to be lishma. And if you don't blacken it, if you don't process it lishma, ein moil afilu im yashchirin achakach lishman. To blacken them afterwards, lishma, it doesn't help you. Then he quotes sources for that. Tshuvas Tvar Shmuel Siman Zayin Tesvav Ayin Sham Tshuvas Ber Eisek Kosav Dashchor Lishma Mahani. That blackening them up afterwards does help. V'ayin B'Tshuvas Rabbi Kiva Eiga the Haiskim Ladinah the Ketvar Shmuel the Hirish Ala Mekilim Bezeh. Okay, now let's carry on the Ramah. Carry on the Mechaba. Haloch al Moshe Misinai. So I'm halfway through Sif Gimel, the bottom line in my print. Haloch al Moshe Misinai. That the Retzuos have got to be black. That's the halacha Moshe Misinai mibachutz. Now that's interesting. In other words, when you wear it on the outside, facing out, that's got to be black. The underside doesn't have to be. Now you've got very nice tefillin, Chaim, and yours happen to be on both sides, and that's a big discussion. The recent thing is that on the underside is also black. But I know in the olden tefillin, most tefillin, I don't know what everyone's got, most of them they're a different color. They're a sort of a leathery type of color, and that's what the Mechab is saying. You only need that side. It's a chumrah to have that side. The reason why people like the other side to be black is if they flip, that means you're sorted. Both sides are black. But Me'ikar Din, only the Mechab is saying only the outer side needs to be black. So says the Mechaba. Halach l'Moshe Misina she Retzuos shechayros mebachutz. Avol mitzad pnim, the inside yaseh me'ezet tzeva sheyitze. You can make it any color you want. Chutz me'adoim, apart from red. When people think, you've got cuts on your hands and maybe they become bloodied and red, but otherwise you can do it any color. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkot and Yutes, Shechayros, Ein beborach she'amad damashim midvarov, the mitzvah lashchir not shiu shcheres korev. They've got to be black as a raven, very, very black. V'da, the Dayan used to say shoe polish black. That if they've become old and the blackness have sort of faded away, I keep in my tefillin bag, especially for the boys in school, a little black ink, and you can black over you've got to blacken them. In the place of the hiduk, which means around here, where you're putting the tefillin, you're pulling it, then over there, b'mokum hiduk, it's quite common for the blackness to fade. You've got to be very careful in this particular point. Look at number 14. Ruba kukule doesn't help. In other words, if the majority of your leather retzuos are black, but a minority has faded, we don't say ruba kukule, and it's tzarich sheyeh kulei shachar. But rather the whole thing has got to be shachar, etc. Okay, let's move on. Sifkot and chof mibachutz letzat haseyar. So in other words, the outside, the tzad haseyar of the hair side of the animal, humokum hecholok. Ve'im hishchirim mibifnim lo mahanin. If you just blacken them only on the inside, that doesn't help you. V'tzarich lachsav lashchirim mabachutz. You got to blacken them on the facing outside. V'ayim b'halacha ya'aseh. So we said you can make it any color you want. If you want to color them, you're not mechuyev to do it any color. Even according to the Rambam, who says you should blacken the inner side, like the batim hashcherim. We are not noyeg like the Rambam. If you take a look at number 15, black retzuos, according to Rambam, is not halach l'mesh misinai. Elamedim noy tefillin. It's like an extra beauty of the tefillin, and we don't ve'chein hevi b'chazon ish. Sorry, v'inyan chudei haretzuos, and regarding the sides of the retzuos. In other words, we've said that this has got to be black. The underside you can do any color. It's a chumrah and it's a nice hidur to do the underside black. What about the sides? They have to be black. Says the note over here in number 14. Number 15. The sides of the edges of the retzuos. The Prima Godim says you don't need to, and he says at the bottom the same the Chazon Ish and the Tshuvas Van Hogos Moshe Steinbuch in the name of the Griz Lo Higbid Al Zeh. So what comes out is that the retzuos have got to be done from a kosher animal. They need to be black on the outside. So the inside does not need to be, but if it's a noy tefillin, if they are, Chaim has got noy tefillin, and the chudim, the outsides, machloikas, but the Prima Godim is not machmir on that. Neither was the Chazon Ish and the Briskerov say that. Okay, we'll leave it there.